The harvest of dreams. Silas lived where the red dust of the earth met the endless blue of the sky. Every morning before the sun could fully wake, he was already in the fields, his hands gripping the worn handle of a hoe. While other children carried satchels filled with stories, Silas carried the weight of the harvest. His parents worked beside him, their faces etched with the quiet rhythm of survival, hoping their son might one day find a path out of the furrows. Whenever Silas took a breath of rest, his best friend, Kojo, would appear like a sudden breeze. Kojo was a boy of laughter and games, often clutching a ball made of tied rags. "Leave the weeds for a moment, Silas," Kojo would shout, kicking the ball into the air. Silas wanted to run, to let the dirt fly from his heels, but the shadows of his unfinished chores always pulled him back toward the rows of corn. On the other side of the fence sat Amara. She was a girl who lived in the worlds found between pages. While Silas worked and Kojo played, Amara sat under the shade of a wide-reaching mango tree, her eyes locked onto a thick book. Silas would watch her from afar, fascinated by her stillness. To him, her books were mystery boxes, and he wondered if they held the secrets to the questions he couldn't answer in class. School was a battlefield where Silas felt unarmed. Numbers danced away from him, and history dates blurred like rain on a window. After long hours on the farm, his brain felt as heavy as the sacks of grain he hauled. But seeing Amara's focus gave him a quiet spark. At night, by the flickering light of a single candle, he would spread his tattered notebooks on the floor, trying to make sense of the lessons he had missed while tending the soil. The day of the National Basic Education exam arrived with a cold, biting wind. Silas stood at the entrance of the concrete school building, his heart drumming against his ribs. He saw Kojo waving a lucky charm from the crowd and Amara walking in with the calm grace of someone who had already mastered the world. Silas took his seat, gripped his pen, and whispered a prayer that the earth he tilled had prepared him for the seeds of knowledge he was trying to sow. Weeks later, the results were posted on the village bulletin board. Kojo was the first to find Silas, dragging him through the square with a roar of excitement. "You did it, Silas. You're on the list." Silas pushed through the crowd until he saw his name. He hadn't just passed, he had excelled. Even Amara, standing nearby with her own successful results, gave him a respectful nod. For a moment, the dust of the farm felt like gold beneath his feet. The joy was short-lived when the letter of admission from the university arrived. It was a beautiful document, but the fee schedule attached to it felt like a sentence. Silas's father turned the paper over in his calloused hands, his silence heavier than any stone. They had the intellect, they had the passion, but the jars in the kitchen were empty of the coins needed to open the university's iron gates. Determined to bridge the gap, Silas took on extra work in the nearby town. He spent his afternoons hauling heavy crates of produce at the market, and his evenings helping the village mason. He worked until his muscles burned and his vision blurred, but as the deadline for the fees approached, the pile of money remained frustratingly small. He sat by the road one evening, counting the coins, realizing he was still miles away from his dream. On the very last morning of the enrollment period, a bright, modern truck rumbled into the village, stopping right in front of Silas's gate. A tall man stepped out, his clothes sharp, and his eyes bright with a familiar spark. It was Uncle Elian, who had gone across the sea before Silas was born. He had heard of Silas's academic triumph through letters, and had traveled back to honor the family's brightest spark. "The soil gave us a life, Silas," Uncle Elian said, handing him a sealed envelope that contained the full tuition for the 4-year degree. "Now, it's time for you to reach for the stars." A week later, Silas stood before the university's grand library. He saw Amara crossing the quad with a stack of books, and he finally understood that his journey wasn't an escape from the farm, but the ultimate harvest of all his hard work.